Really bad. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of After Impact. I am Tom Bilyeu, and this is
Agent Smith.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is. All right, and thanks to everybody out in the community for calling him Agent Smith, which finally got him to really emotionally embrace.
It stuck.
It did. It
Yep.
did. So today we're going to be talking about Tim Ferriss and the episode that we did, which was a lot of fun. It was actually the second time that I've interviewed Tim. Super good dude. Really, really liked him, and he's somebody that's had a tremendous impact on my life. And when I read the 4-Hour Work Week back in, God, when was that? That must have been 2006, 2007, something like that. That really began to be something that laid the foundation for how we went about Quest. And the notion of, getting really, really efficient with your time, but most importantly in the book, the concept of the 1,000 screaming fans. And that continues to be a driver here at Impact Theory, understanding that your community is your everything, understanding that you're putting something together that is meant to serve a group of people, get them super excited. And I've given some talks on it, and and that's still part of my repertoire in the talks, is to talk about that concept of the 1,000 screaming fans. So mad love to Tim, super excited to bring him on, talk about his new book, which we're going to be doing big giveaways, giveaway. We're going to be doing 100 books, if I'm not
100
mistaken.
books.
100
Yep.
books, Tools of Titans. You guys are going to want to dive into this one. He's basically condensed his podcast, which is amazing. And look, I'm doing a podcast, and I'm here to tell you, man, his podcast is an inspiration.
It's really good.
Killing the game. So, Tools of Titans distills all the people that he's brought on. I'm a big believer in codifying the universe, and really living by a code. And to get to that code, you have to have a bunch of beliefs that you've encountered yourself, or that somebody has been kind enough to distill for you. And that's what this book is. It has a whole bunch of experts, and I know that we're doing a giveaway around exactly how many experts that is. So I won't give that away. But it's amazing, and it's chock full of just amazing stuff. So had him on, and now we're going to go deeper.
Yeah, and before we get started, I just want to remind everyone listening that we are doing After Impact Live on Facebook and Instagram. Follow Tom Bilyeu in order to get access to that.
Yes.
And we're doing it every day that the episode releases, which is Tuesdays. So you can check the episode on the podcast and come and join us for live and ask your questions and get involved in this conversation.
Yeah, so that was the idea behind this, was really to invite you guys into the conversation, make you a part of it. I really want that to be living and thriving. And when I look forward in terms of what's happening with social media and where this is all going, I think that that's a critical part of it. And there's going to be, with any community, there's going to be those super users that will come every time, they'll engage, and really want to be a part of that. And I had a guy pitching me yesterday on an investment, and he's building a platform. It's really interesting. And one of the things it does a bunch of things, but one of the things that it does is notify you when somebody comes into your stream that's one of your super users. So that's pretty cool. That would be something that I think will be super beneficial as we keep going. So, but we want your questions, so make sure that you guys are diving in and letting us know where you want to go with the conversation. And like Agent Smith was saying, what we're hoping is you guys will listen to the podcast before you jump on, and that there'll be something that you really wanted to drill deeper into, and that's what the show will be about.
Yeah, and for those joining us on Facebook and Instagram, just know that you can get the earliest access to the episode by subscribing to the podcast. That's where we release it first. So it comes out 6 a.m. on Tuesday. You can catch it on your morning commute, and then be ready to discuss it here.
Word. And if you could, we're trying to hit that new and noteworthy. What's that?
We're having sound issues.
Uh-oh.
We're having sound issues.
Coming feedback
Oh,
on that end.
that is the last thing I expected, because
Ian
said
says your mic, Jared, is hotter, so it could be the positioning.
all right, well, we can turn it down.
Well, it's going to be on
Either
these
something
mics
is
here.
unplugged, or
Truth.
maybe, Tom, your mic's not plugged in all the way. I don't know.
Let's check our
These are interesting and very helpful theories here.
Check the connection over there.
We are our own sound technician.
Let's see, let's just try the simple.
So that's plugged
Any
in.
better? We've got a dangle. That's all right. That's unfortunate. That would have been nice and easy. Wow.
Where's this one?
Our setup is so much cleaner than it was in the past.
Underneath.
Oh, I am plugged that.
You got it already? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's
if you could check and see if that unplug, replug, if that helped.
better or worse
Better or worse? That's a good question. Anybody? Cindy?
or no change.
That face doesn't look good.
Well, no one's answered yet.
All right, so unfortunately, I think we're going to have to assume that we're good because I'm not sure what we would do differently
No
here.
change, apparently.
No change. So maybe we reposition the microphones.
Yeah.
Let's try
But
that.
they're saying that there's a humming sound. That's what makes me nervous.
Could be that, like, you've got two mics set up, so maybe
Yeah, we've all said those.
All right, bear with us, live audience.
All right, and live audience, if you would tell us if what we're doing is making any improvement, that would be super, super helpful.
Try this one down here, maybe?
Well, that would certainly make you less hot, which is one of the complaints, but I'm way more worried about the buzzing.
So how are we doing now on buzzing? Anyone?
They said they can live with it, honestly, just keep talking.
They can live with it.
All right, well, there we go. We'll dive right in there.
We'll get this fixed for next time. What I would like to ask for our first giveaway, so if you want to win this book right here, we're going to be giving 100 copies away all the time, starting now. So whoever shares this live video on Facebook, Instagram will get to you in a second. Whoever shares this live video on Facebook, we will, at the end of the episode, we'll tally those up and we'll give a few copies away.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So share, please.
Share.
All right, let's get started. First question. Let's talk about, you're not feeling well today.
True.
Let's talk about suffering.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah, so that was a big topic in the episode. Tim talks about Amelia Boone and her inhuman capacity for suffering, and then you two connected on how that can be a benefit to you as an entrepreneur. Do you think it's effective for everyone to cultivate the ability to suffer? And then if so, how do you get better at that kind of endurance?
So an answer you're going to hear me say a lot is everything comes down to identity, right? And if you want to cultivate your identity, it really is about saying it out loud and repeating it to yourself. And then you reinforce it in ways. So like over there behind the camera, you've got, I just put this on my Instagram story, I've got a painting of Michael Jordan from the famous flu game, where he played with, they think it was probably food poisoning, but I think he had a temperature and just really, really was just absolutely out of it. And it has one of the best games. It was like game 5 or 6 of the series. I mean, it's crazy. You don't have to bring it. My wife is literally going to drag the painting in here. It's bigger than her. But, doing things like that and putting that up in the house and reinforcing that in my identity as somebody who aspires to that, as somebody who sees that as a part of my identity, the willingness to endure. And when I came across a quote from Nietzsche, and it was about that he wishes on his friends suffering, self-loathing, failure, because it will prove to you the only thing that really matters, and that's whether or not you can endure. That I mark that down, and I keep that, and it's one of those that I return to often. So yes, I think that everybody would benefit from it. I mean, if you're trying to do something, here's the thing, I don't pass moral judgment on people that want just like a totally chill life. I fully respect that, and that was a very conscious choice for me, especially when Lisa and I, had amassed wealth, and it was like, okay, do I really want to keep pushing? Because at this point we could retire and never have to think about working again, and that didn't resonate with me, and it wasn't the identity that I wanted to build, and it didn't feel like me. But I get it, I get the impulse for that, and I think it's a really valid choice, and if you can do that, and that's what you want, and that feels right. And I think that that's the only thing you can ask is if whatever you're doing should build a deep sense of fulfillment in your life. And for me, that is pursuit. That is going after skill set. And I am so fascinated, deeply, deeply fascinated by what human beings are capable of. And when you look at so I have the theory, and I read this. Please don't think that I'm making it up. That humans are an active species, and they desire to first explore and then conquer. Right? That is innate to humans. It's how we became the apex predator. And when I think about the explorers of old and why they would put themselves through the kind of hardships that they would to leave a comfortable city, or what we're about to do in the future now, where you're going to get colonialists that go to Mars, and they're trading in a much easier life where you can walk outside and actually breathe. Right. And they're going to trade that for a life on Mars, and I love that, and I love that humans are really asking and answering the question of how far can we push ourselves. And I think that is just, it's hardwired in us, and I think it's beautiful. And that may be the difference. I think a lot of people find danger in that, and I see nothing but beauty.
Yeah. So before we jump to the next question, should we check in with the live audience, see how sound is going?
They said it seems to be working better now.
Awesome.
All right, great. And I'll just remind everyone that if you share this live feed on Facebook, you will be entered into our giveaway to win Tools of Titans.
I was just talking to somebody, in fact, his name is Sam Gore. He's an incredible human being, and was one of the first super fans of Quest Nutrition. He's a commentator on ESPN, just a cool guy, does a lot of tennis. If you ever see him, like, shout him out socially, at Sam B. Gore. What a cool dude. And why did I bring him up? We were just talking yesterday and he said, because you were repeating the thing that you'd said at the beginning, and he said that audiences now turn over so rapidly in a sporting match that they're instructed to repeat every 15 minutes like their best material. And I thought, what the hell? And he said, they're so deep in the analytics of the attention span and how often people come and then the audience turns over. And every 15 minutes you have essentially an entirely new audience in a live sporting event. That is crazy to me. And he talked about how they really are looking at changing the length of basketball games and baseball games.
Wow, I knew they were looking into baseball. I didn't know basketball.
I didn't know baseball, which actually makes more sense to me because
That's a long
I have
game.
a long attention span, and that shit, like, that's not going to happen. But yeah, can't believe it, but all true.
All right, let's talk about self-optimization. So Tim is constantly refining his process. It's very clear from the episode and also from his book.
I'm told to lean in.
He's constantly refining his process, asking himself tough questions in order to get better. Do you think that's his main reason why he's so successful?
Is that the main reason? You really threw a curveball at the end. I think it's a huge thing, and I think everybody should be self-optimizing. And you and I both take notes when we watch the episodes, and that was also one of the things that I wrote down. I thought that was really interesting, and when he and I were talking, it hit me in real time that what makes Tim so fascinating is a willingness to check his own assumptions and to make that a part of his process, to really ask those questions. What if I did the opposite for 24 or 48 hours? And he goes into that in the episode, and it's really, really fascinating. And I think that certainly a lot of things have come from that. Do I think it's the main reason that he's successful? No, but I think that it's a very powerful tool.
All right, well, let's follow up on that question. So a big part of finding success is about putting in the work. We talk about that here, right? Grinding it out when you need to, staying late when you need to. But how often, though, should you self-assess versus just grinding it out? Like, when should you take a step back, look at your processes, figure out ways to optimize? How much should you be doing that?
It's interesting. I've never asked myself that question because I self-assess a lot, and I probably multiple times a day will ask myself if what I'm pushing or pursuing is really the right answer, and if I'm getting myself what I want. And I have my list that I go over every morning. To go through, what are the most important things that I could be working on right now, and even just that title, that this is, the document is called the most important things to do, really makes me ask, is this the most important thing to do? But if you look at yourself and you know that you don't do that you very much get caught up, and that you have perpetual motion, and once you put your nose down to the grindstone, that you just keep going, it would probably be incredibly valuable to you to formalize that, and to, I use alarms like crazy to set an alarm. I don't think you need to do it more than once or twice a week, in fairness. Like, you should have enough vision for where you're trying to get to, and the steps should be relatively clear, and you should have been working through that if you're once or twice sort of a week really checking your base assumption, that should be plenty.
Okay, great. Let's switch gears a little bit. So one of the stories that Tim tells, and I think is in this book as well, is about Pixar. And it really fascinated me because he said that some of their best movies, they started with a draft and then completely threw it out. Not rewrote the draft, not refined it, but like completely changed the movie and turned into their best work. So he uses that as a technique for creativity, that sometimes you have to scrap your first project. How do you know when to scrap a project?
For me, it really comes from frustration, and you write a lot, so I'm sure that you get this, where you're working on it, and you can just sort of feel it slipping away, and it's like, for me, it largely comes from, like, I start to be embarrassed, and I start to get this feeling that, like, oh my God, like, am I not good at this? You know what I mean? And it comes from that almost an anxiety and frustration, and I try to really cultivate the side of it that's aggressive and frustrated so that I can get to a breaking point. It's like ipecac, where sometimes vomiting and like going all the way just clears out the system. And so, if I can get to that point where I push through the sort of insecurity and self-doubt and get to that, like, fuck this moment, like I'm starting over, like it doesn't matter how much time I have in this, like, and really capture that momentum of the irritation, like then you can channel that into something really pretty neat. And I actually welcome that moment. Like I hate the in-between. Like I love it when it feels it's just working and it's clicking. And I love it when I get to the full-blown like rage of like, fuck, I'm gonna start over, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna kill it, and I absolutely hate the moment in between where it's like, oh, I don't know, is this coming together? And so, I think if you can learn to cultivate that, to really push yourself deeper and deeper into that, and sense that unease, and that was something I really had to train myself to do, was sense the unease, right? That the unease means something. And when people can learn to read those biological processes, like for instance, I can tell, like I'll start to get anxious if I get to the edge of my knowledge and I'm still talking, because then I'm like, wait a second, I'm now drifting out of what I really know and understand, and I'm getting into prognosticating or, just sort of really uneducated hypothesizing. And so I've learned to trust that sense of unease there, and just either make sure that I tell myself, hey, this is something now that you need to either learn more about, or this is something that you need to frame the discussion around not being an area of expertise. And so you'll hear me when I'm talking about something, hey, I'm not an expert in this, or I really don't know a lot about this, or whatever, just to make sure people understand that I get it. But that's me feeling that unease. And I didn't always do that, and there would be times where I'd be deep into a discussion about something, and I'm sort of making it up on the fly and just being fascinated by where it's going, but not recognizing like how uneasy I've become with what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's interesting. So jumping off of that question, talking about pushing through the projects that aren't going well until you get to a point where you're happy with it. What about Tim's idea about lowering your expectations, specifically around creative pursuits? Lowering your expectations in order to get started, and why is that such an effective tool? And do you have any examples of how you've applied that in your life?
What's funny is I have a huge example of how that's applied in my life, but when he gave the answer, I had to laugh out loud because it was not what I expected Tim Ferriss to say.
Yeah.
He's so process driven that I'm not sure if that means I should have expected it or that it should have taken me as surprised as it did, but it really did take me by surprise. But his answer is brilliant, which is, you can get into performance anxiety when you really want something to be great. And Tim is somebody that I think is an exceptional writer, and really is an exceptional experimenter and conceptualizer. Like the way that he can conceive of the problem, the fact, the story that he tells about when he was a sales guy and he asked himself, what if I did the opposite? So everybody else is making calls from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
What if I did the opposite and was making calls from 6 to 8:30 or whatever? I wouldn't even think to ask that question. So that was very, very powerful. The example that I have in my own life of a time where I've used lowering my expectations to great effect was Instagram, and it's the story that I told when he and I were talking, and it's super embarrassing, but it's really become a beautiful reminder for me of not being paralyzed by wanting something to be so good that you never actually do it.
Yeah.
And there was one weekend where I had decided that I was really going to make Instagram amazing, and I was so fed up with how much BS content there was on Instagram. I thought I'm gonna make these mini essays, right? That you could, and at one point I was thinking these are gonna be the chapters to my book, and which is a horrible idea to do for Instagram, by the way. If I could just let everybody know, that is not the medium, and talk about fundamentally misunderstanding your audience and the platform. So I was writing these very detailed things, and there was one, it took me 9 hours. And I was like, this is an Instagram post, homie. You cannot spend 9 hours on this.
How many words was that?
They limit you. It's 770 or something. I mean, it's really short.
So short blog post.
Yeah. So I was like, dude, 9 hours for this is absolutely criminal. And honestly, my thing was it just didn't scale. And I was like, okay, if I'm really going to do this, one a week and to be spending 9 hours, that's crazy town. So I just put I didn't think of it as lowering my expectations. I thought of it as making a demand. I can only spend 20 minutes on this. And once I said, okay, I can only spend 20 minutes on it, then everything changed. And now I probably spend like 5 minutes on them. And I'm actually getting a bigger reaction now than I was back then. And it's way, like, getting that short forced me to really analyze who's my audience, because I stopped writing it for myself and trying to think that, ooh, like, this is my best writing,
Right,
you know,
right.
and making it about, okay, who's the audience, what's the platform, and really making something that was super authentic to that. So when he was saying that, I was like, you know what, that actually really resonates. It's a slight twist on how I'd thought of it, but it was much clearer, even than the way that I'd conceived of it in my own mind. And, you know, it doesn't mean that you're not trying to do something that's effective. And I think that switching your mind from effective to, or away from like great to just effective, like what's going to be effective in this moment is huge. And so that concept really helped me with that.
Yeah, it's a great example of stepping back and kind of looking at your current process and figuring out how do you optimize, how do you make this better. So yeah, it worked for you.
And if anybody, like, so people always ask, you know, about process, about how you get better at something. I want to tell you that right now I'm going through that. You guys are watching me do it in real time. Unfortunately, mental transformation is invisible, but because I don't feel great today, and I won't say that I feel terribly, but I definitely do not feel good. I'm actually having a hard time remembering your question as I'm answering. And so I'm forcing myself to like hold that in my head, because it's actually something that I'm already not great at. And now that I'm sort of off a step, that's another thing. And so I'm really forcing myself to practice. And I just can't tell people enough how every moment of your life is an opportunity to practice. And I'm not sitting here thinking like, oh my God, I have to deliver this amazing performance. I'm thinking, this is a great opportunity to practice, holding something in my head while I'm, you know, expanding on something else, and just practice. And it seems like such a perfect time for me to practice it now today, because it's harder today, so I'm way more aware of the process.
Let's check.
My daughter, everyone. My daughter.
Let's check in with our live audience. Do we have any questions from the community?
We do. This one comes from Michael Foster on Facebook.
Michael Foster, man, you want to talk about a super user. This guy's not playing around. Michael, first of all, I notice every time you post, you're my man. So thanks for being a part of this.
Super. All right, so have you ever considered writing a similar book with all the tactics, strategies, and mindset shifts you experience in Insight Quest and Impact Theories?
So the question is, for Tom, have you ever considered writing a book like Tools of Titans that has all of the tactics, techniques, and mindset shifts from the guests on Impact Theory and Insight Quest?
No. But I am working on, I should say, the most truthful answer is I am putting in motion the things that will need to be done in order to have a book in the next 12 months, which is basically taking all the content that we've put out and turning it into a book. So that I'm not having to sit down and sort of think of all this stuff from scratch. I've been talking about it nonstop for the last 2 years. So yeah, gonna boil that down into a book. I could see doing something like this, but honestly, when I really stop and ask myself, what's the greatest value that I could offer that is completely unique to me, it's Escaping the Matrix. So yeah, book number 1 will be Escaping the Matrix.
There you have it. I want to jump in and remind our Facebook Live audience, you can win this book today if you share the video. Share the live feed.
Sure.
And then I think maybe we should jump into our next giveaway. So this one involves Instagram as well. This is both. We're going to give away 1 book for Facebook and 1 book for Instagram. You're going to need to comment. Now here's the question. Listen carefully. Guess the number of experts featured in Tim's new book, Tools of Titans. There are a lot. This is a thick, weighty tome.
Tome is the only word for that book, I think.
Guess the number of experts that he features in this book that are packed in. And we'll let people guess for a few minutes, and then the person who's closest will give away the book.
Nice. I like to think the person who gets it exactly right, because they read it, and
they just know, deep in their soul.
Yeah, when you told me the answer, I was like, did you count that?
I did.
He actually did count it. Yeah. I thought maybe they released something in a press kit or something, but no. Agent Smith actually counted. I'm impressed.
All right, let's jump over to our next question while people are guessing. Let's talk about exponential thinking versus linear thinking.
Nice.
Big theme of the episode. I'm going to read a quote.
Please.
So Tim says, the most interesting things happen at the fringes first. So let's talk about what that means. Exponential thinking, it's definitely something Tim is very good at. Thinking about how do you 10x your results and decrease your timeline. So why is that important, and how do you practice it?
Well, I think you have two different questions there, and let's see if I can hold them both in my head. So one is we have the most interesting things happen at the fringe, and I am so fascinated by that concept, and I wrote that one down too. Really, really impacted me. And then the other is exponential thinking versus linear thinking. So this is a Peter Diamandis special, who Tim brought up in the episode. And I've gotten to know Peter very well, being on the board of the X Prize, and it is a paradigm shift. And Peter Thiel talks about this a lot as well. It's the difference between an incremental improvement and going from 0 to 1. That instead of trying to have a 10% improvement, how do you have a 10x improvement? And what does exponential thinking really look like? So the way that Peter explains it, and I've always loved this, is if you take, I think it's 30 linear steps, you'll end up about 30 meters away, okay? So, from here to halfway through my driveway, so not very far. Whereas if you do 30 exponential steps, which is exponential is simple doubling. So 1 doubles to 2, 2 doubles to 4, 4 doubles to 8, 8 to 16, so on and so forth. In 30 steps, you're 1 billion meters away.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's something like around the Earth 26 times or something. So the difference, linear being my driveway, and then exponential being 26 times around the Earth, you really get a sense of the scale. And it all comes down to being willing to think that big. So I'll give you guys, so Tim has talked about, in fact, Jesus, this is great, it's right from the episode, about having one sort of serious, very weighty goal, and then having one that's a more frivolous, fun goal. And so my weighty goal, I think everybody knows, is we want to fundamentally shape culture through the incubation of companies and content, and giving people the ideology around which companies and content should be built, and then helping them actually put that into practice. And I think through doing that, we can end what I refer to as generational poverty, which is a mindset. It's not about money. I don't need people to want money, but they just need to believe that certain things are possible, and then most importantly, know how to execute against that. Okay, that's the big fucking mission. But then I have a more fun, sort of small goal, and that is I want to be the first entrepreneur with his own Nike shoe.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. And so that to me is nice. That to me is an example of exponential thinking, because who is going to be a big enough ass to think that they can have their own Nike shoe, right? Jordan has a Nike shoe. Entrepreneurs don't get Nike shoes. So Yet, right? And so that's literally, and now I actually want people to take this deadly seriously. So just because I'm willing to allow myself to believe that I can make that a possibility, it's getting scary, like how many people are making connections for me. So a woman who works at Nike Plus just reached out to me to speak at USC, and so everybody here was like freaking out. They're like, oh my God, like it's a step closer. And then just yesterday, I got introduced to a high-level executive at Nike, because I happened to tell a friend of mine that, I want to be the first person with a shoe. And he's like, oh my God, one of my closest friends is like a high-level exec at Nike. He's like, I'll hook you guys up. So we connected on email last night, and I said, look, I know this is crazy, but I want to be the first entrepreneur with his own Nike shoe. And I said, look, I'm a super diehard, A, I'm a total sneakerhead, and B, I'm a Nike fanatic. And so I sent him links, of like talks I've given, and then obviously the show, and said, make sure you look at the kicks. Yeah. And that to me is just freeing my mind up from the voice in my head that says you can't do this. And that to me is the difference between linear thinking and exponential thinking, because a linear thinker will allow themselves to believe that one day they could afford a pair of Nike shoes, right? That's linear thinking. Right. And then an exponential thinker says, no, fuck that. I don't just want to make a movie, I want to influence culture through content. I'm not just going to afford a pair of Nikes, I'm going to get my own Nike shoe, right? So that is, it comes down to a willingness to believe in something just absurd, and that knowing that people are going to think you're ridiculous, that they're going to shower you with hate. But what I want everyone to understand, when people say that you're putting it out into the universe, let's make that really concrete for a second. Human beings cannot help you if they don't know what you're looking for. Right? They're not a mind reader. Right. So whatever grand goal you have, until you start telling people, it won't seem real. And then all of a sudden, once you start telling people, it does seem cosmic, because it's like all of a sudden, like, oh, I could get you here. Oh, I could get you that far. Oh, I can make this introduction. And so it seems like, whoa, what is happening? But the reality is you just started telling people. And, people are going to have connections, and they're going to do what they can. And if you keep pushing it and, keep
focused over a long enough period of time, you will be shocked at what will relent to that. All right, and now just to prove to myself that I'm getting better at this, the other idea that I had to hold in my head wasn't exponential thinking, it was living at the fringes. I'm mad. All right, so, and that's practice, boys and girls. That's how you get better at this. Make demands of yourself and then see if you can pull it off. Living at the fringes. Why do I think that is such a powerful concept? I think it's a sexy comment. I think it's one of those notions that really is like we all want it to be true. And when you are living in the middle, if you've ever seen penguins, what they do is when it gets really cold, they get into like a big cluster and they actually take turns rotating through the center. So at the center, it's the warmest, and then obviously at the outer edge, it's going to be the coldest. There's so much safety in the center. There's so much safety where everybody else is and where you're thinking the same way as everybody else. There's no danger of being ostracized, which is do you know that ostracization registers in the pain centers in the brain? Like physical pain. Yeah, it's crazy. So we hate as a species that notion of like being turned away from people, being kicked out of a group. Like it is so painful. But once you're out at the edges, that's where you can really discover. That's where you can be bold. That's where you can find something that other people just aren't thinking of, and certainly not seeing, because you really are at the outer edges. And I mean, I can give you a lot of analogies, like for instance, get out of a city and it's unbelievable how many stars are actually there, but you just can't see them because of the light pollution in a city, and all of a sudden the world feels truly different, but it's not, right? All those stars were there, they were all shining just as brightly. Right. There was just something around you that stopped you from seeing them. But those are, no matter how many of those I give you, they're all just going to be analogies. The reality is, I think once you're not focused on fitting in, then you start making unique connections, because over time, and it almost never happens like right away, because even if you turn away from the group, stop seeking the approval of the group, at first you're still going to have the group mentality, you're still going to be thinking in the same way. But once you're looking at not even looking, once you're like feeling like what's real to me, what feels good to me in all of my unique experience and all the, the different life that I've lived and the things that I find interesting, the farther you go down that path, the more things will reveal themselves. So I think we're a very a-traditional business podcast, and in the beginning, like that was a hard choice, right? To be me. And I remember in the beginning, like someone would say something that would spark something really goofy in me, and I didn't want people to think that I was goofy, because I thought, God, are they going to think that like I'm a fool? Right. And then I thought, wait a second, like these are all the instincts that have led me to where I've gotten, and if I'm afraid to show people that, I'll never get far enough down the path of this really being a unique show. So we had back-to-back neuroscientists on the show. You're not going to see that in a lot of business podcasts. Right. Why? Because the brain is the secret. And once you understand that, then you can really do something. So that's why I think people need to be at the edges. That's why I think, and I think the quote originally came from Kurt Vonnegut. If not originally from him, almost certainly Tim has that quote in the book. It really is true.
That's a great jumping off point for this next question about copywriting your faults. So that's something that you guys discussed in the episode. You talked about it just now, but in order to copyright your faults, you have to accept them first, right? You have to accept your own idiosyncrasies. So how do people do that? How do they go from that place of putting themselves out in the world, living on the fringes, fear of being ostracized? How do you start working toward that?
Here's the honest answer: you got to get good. Like, you got to be good. There are a lot of things that you're afraid of doing, and you should be afraid because you suck at them. And if you go into something saying, I'm not good at this, I'm going to practice, I'm going to get good, this is a long time horizon, I'm going to work my ass off, this is going to be a long process, and I don't mind doing it in quiet, I don't need people to think it's cool or to appreciate what I'm doing, I'm just going to get better at this. And then you really begin to put yourself out there once you've proven that it has utility, that you're actually able to do something that is powerful, it's a good technique. That really is the key. And so for me, like being silly or goofy or whatever, I've just found that that's actually an effective way to connect with people, because they see that it's you, that it's real, and that I know enough about myself to know that I won't push the goofiness to the part where it breaks the interview, right? So if I didn't know how to do that, if I hadn't practiced that just in real life of being myself in a business meeting or whatever, which was a very long process, and I cannot tell you how long. I probably spent I mean, it's a scale, right? It wasn't binary, but for a decade in business, I was only some shade of myself because I wasn't confident and I wasn't good. And so it took me time to know, like, I'm going to deliver value in this meeting. Like, I'm going to crush it. I'm going to see what we need to do to make this happen. And so it's okay for me to be silly. It's okay for me to be playful because I will deliver value in this meeting. And if you can't deliver value and you're just being silly and playful, then you become a distraction. And at that point, it is way better that you try to be at the center of the penguins, right? Like, know when you're strong enough to be at the edge, and if you're not strong enough to be at the edge, like, you know, you have to be really careful and really insightful into yourself. And if you guys saw the movie Into the Wild, great movie, but the kid dies, and it's like a true story, right? So he goes out into the wilderness, he's unprepared, and he dies. And you know, it's a great tale. He's super brave, but at the same time, like, dude, fucking do some shorter expeditions with a way bigger safety net until you know how to cure meat and all of that, so that you can survive a winter. He just went too fast too soon, you know, and he paid the ultimate price. So that's, like, I always tell people, I will augment my brain as this stuff happens, and they're bringing out microchips and things that you can implant, but I won't be an early adopter. Like, are you fucking mind? Like, unless you have, like, some major malfunction in your brain to be the first person to put a chip in you, crazy. I won't be the first person on Mars, right? Like, let's build some structures. So knowing when you're strong enough to be on the outside is critical.
Awesome. All right, let's check in with our live audience. So does anybody know, Cindy, do we have anyone who answered the trivia question?
Like, what are the rules of this? Is it, like,
So if there's anyone who got it
answer,
exactly.
Or is it like the closest without going over?
So it's anyone who got it exactly, and then anyone who's closest will take over or under.
Over or under. So
we won't go prices
Pettit
right.
Sounds with 112.
Who is this?
Pettit Sounds.
Oh, I know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
Pettit Sounds. That's our boy Ian.
Indeed it is.
Ian, you just won a
want
copy.
to talk about another super
Ian
user.
just won.
Yeah. I love that username too. Pettit Sounds. Little Beach Boys throwback.
Nice. I didn't get that reference.
Yeah. You just won, Ian. We're going to send this to you. Enjoy the book, and thanks for all your support.
Is anyone else freaked out by Agent Smith right now that you got that reference? That was dope. And you're absolutely right. Pet Sounds. Nice. I don't know whether to be blown away by you or really embarrassed by me, but I'll go with
I don't know what's happening.
It's considered, many people consider it the greatest album of all time. It's called Pet Sounds, and it was right at the height of Brian Wilson, right, of his mental illness. And he literally brought in, like, goats and all kinds of crazy stuff into the studio and recorded just crazy sounds, but turned it into what at the time was panned, but what now is considered by many to be the greatest album of all time.
All right, that's Instagram, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
Cindy?
that's Instagram.
Anyone on Facebook?
Facebook.
Wow, Facebook is letting us down. Come on, guys. Like, what's happening here?
So the guests on Facebook are 100, 120.
All right.
So
Well,
who's closest?
man, Cindy's like in deep thought over here.
I am, because I'm really bad at that.
Don't worry, so am I.
And then Dave with 110.
110 sounds really
110
close.
is really
And the
close.
reason it sounds close is because the answer is 113.
113.
I counted them up.
Dave Gonzalez.
Courtesy of Agent Smith. Dave Gonzalez.
You just won a copy of Tools of Titans.
Nice.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Congrats,
We'll
guys.
send it to
And
you.
this is a book you're really going to want to actually read. And as Tim describes it, it's a buffet, right? You can dip in, dip out. You can have as much as you want.
Yeah.
And it really, really delivers. And, you know, there's just certain people in the world, I'm grateful they exist. I'm grateful that Tim Ferriss exists. I'm grateful for this book. This book was really, really useful. And it's, I think, a field reference guide. Be sure to check out my review if you're on the fence about this one. Have we released a review yet?
Yeah, I know we'll release it this week, Thursday.
All right, so on Thursday we'll be releasing the book review. Check it out. And also, I'd love to know what you guys think about the format. I'm trying to do something totally different with the book reviews, and it's not just a straight sort of summary of the book. I'm trying to give you how it's impacted me, how I plan to use it in my life, how I think you can use it, some of the quotes that are really, really strong that you should integrate into your life. it's the format of book review I always wanted. And my goal with the book reviews is not to make it so that you don't need to read the book, because that would be foolish. That would be to miss the opportunity to find out what you uniquely would take away from the book,
Right.
which I think is the point of reading a book. Like, for sure, you're going to take away things that somebody else won't. That's what makes you uniquely you. That's what makes you valuable, is that you're going to have some insight that other people won't. That's something you'll respond to that other people wouldn't respond to. And so it's always a little mortifying that people are trying to find the cliff notes and not read the book. It's like, that's the whole point, to supercharge your own life and then have some nuance that you pick up on that you can leverage in your life to do something incredible. And going back to that notion of standing at the edges, it's like, man, if your whole life is about finding the cliff notes, like, I'm going to eat your lunch, because I'm going all in. I'm trying to figure out what I can do and how I can learn from this and how I can push myself. I'm not asking what's the least I can do. I'm asking what the most I can bear is. And so the goal here is to get you to read the books,
Right.
not to help you get an A on your high school exam. Like, come on, really read it.
So we got one more giveaway to kick off for today. This one is for Facebook and Instagram. Now, like Tom mentioned earlier, we are really trying to hit new and noteworthy on iTunes for our podcast. That's going to help us grow that much faster. But we need your help. We need you to subscribe, first of all, and then we need you to rate and review us. So anyone who sends in a screen grab of their review on iTunes.
Can we get also their screen grab of the subscription? Because isn't that what we really need? Like, we need people to subscribe.
Yeah. So an indication that you've been subscribed. I think you can give us a screen grab of that. You should be able to. Send it to connect@impacttheory.com. That's connect@impacttheory.com. And we will choose a winner. Well, maybe we'll choose a couple winners.
Winner, chicken dinner. Let's do a couple on that one, because that's big, guys. That'll
Yeah.
really help us out. And look, our whole ask, we're not asking for money. All we need you guys to help us grow this community. If you've read about our phase 1, 2, and 3 plans for the company, you know that phase 1 is all about community building. So we're trying to build this as rapidly as possible, and it's all value add, right? So our ask is, if we've added value to your life, please, there'll be a few things that we're going to ask for, like subscribing, like rate and review. And if you could help us out with that, it would just mean the world. That's going to be how we pull this off. So we're still heavy in phase 1. We need those subscriptions. That right now is what's going to get us on new and noteworthy. So I am not afraid to ask. That's what I need you guys to do. Go out and subscribe to iTunes.
That's right.
Subscription.
All right, let's dive into a couple more questions.
Yeah,
so Tim has 17 questions that you're supposed to ask, right, in order to get better at something. One of the questions is, how do I learn from my enemies, or how do I learn from the people I hate the most, is I think his phrasing. This one struck me as being very powerful, and his idea that you're separating your morality from your effectiveness, which I think is a really interesting idea. Does this ring true for you as well, this concept?
Yeah, massively. And I don't think of it as separating my morality from it, which is actually pretty interesting and maybe controversial. What I think of it as is, everybody has something for me to learn, and the only thing that's stopping me is me shutting down my own mind. And that really, really scares me. And so I worry a lot about my notions calcifying into dogma, and those are fancy words, and I do love that phrase, so I keep using it. But what I mean by calcifying into dogma is, when you believe something, it's helpful, right? Your world's codified, you know what to say yes to, what to say no to, you know how to move forward. It's very, very useful to believe things. But when you believe them absolutely and you don't question or check those beliefs, then your world is limited, right? You know, the universe of options begins to shrink. And that's why, God, I forget who it is. It's either Peter Diamandis or Elon Musk that says an expert is somebody who can tell you exactly how something can't be done. And that's always resonated with me, and it's not useful. I don't need to know how things can't be done, because first of all, maybe it didn't work the way you did it or when you did it. That doesn't mean that it won't work now or in a slight variation. And people tend to close a lot of doors that way, so I really, really worry about that. And then also, the example that he gives is Newt Gingrich, or, God, if we really want to get political, which I don't, but I'll give you an example. So I watched, I think it was Nerdwriter. I think it was Nerdwriter, don't hold me to this, but I'm almost certain, that did a breakdown of how Trump uses language.
Yeah,
and
he did that.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, there's a lot to learn. Like, it's actually really impactful, and
Yeah.
it changed the way that I write my Instagram posts. because instead of trying to use words like calcifying to dogma,
Right.
which most people do not understand or know what that means, that you really need to speak in a way that people can understand, that's effective, that hits you. And yeah, so to your point about Tim saying he's separating his morality, and I think what he means by that is simply like this person offends
His
my sense of what is
emotions.
right,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that they don't have a powerful lesson in there. And so I very, very much agree with that, and I think that people should take a lesson from wherever it comes, whether it is from somebody who's just outright evil. To me, is completely irrelevant. If they have a powerful lesson, then take the lesson for what it's worth and use it for good, right? So don't limit your worldview just because the messenger happens to be a dick.
There it is.
There it is.
Let's go to the community. Do we have any questions from our live audience?
We do. Let me scroll back a second. I get past the numbers.
While we're looking for that, I just want to say, and Cindy, interrupt me the second you have something, but community, you cannot imagine how much we love you here. Like, you guys are amazing. All the interaction is so cool. The suggestions, people recommend books to me all the time, guests, just feedback on what they like, what they don't like, what's working, what's not working. Like, we think about you guys a lot. We talk about you guys a lot. You really sit at the epicenter of what we're trying to do here. And are just so grateful for the people, especially the ones that are super, super engaged. Thank you guys so much. Just know that that really is the juice to everything that we're doing and what keeps us focused and pushing forward. So thank you guys. And the thing that I find most thrilling about this community is you guys help each other. I love that. And the way that you guys have banded together, that you ask questions of each other and seek help, it's just awesome, man. So, so grateful for
All
that.
right, I've got two questions. One from Nation of Leaders, and he asks thoughts on chapter 2. I'm assuming he's referring to the book.
Yeah, can you give us something more? Like, unfortunately, I don't remember what chapter 2 is. Agent Smith is looking it up.
And then in the meantime, how this is from Keep Evolving. How do we erase
These are some great names.
how do we erase stigma from mental health?
That's going to happen with time. And so,
Let's repeat the question.
how do we erase the stigma of mental health? So here's how anything changes like that. So either you or someone you know and love has said problem, and it erases the stigma in your own mind. And I forget who said it, but somebody said, it's hard to hate somebody you love. And so, for me, I'll just take obesity. Like, you want to talk about having zero judgment on people that are obese, that would be me, because so many people that I love struggle profoundly with obesity. So it's like, it doesn't make me think less of them. I love them. And so as you see that more and more, then more and more people are touched by it. Then people get brave and they start admitting it. So like Carrie Fisher did a lot to bring attention to bipolar disorder. And because she has such a voice, and so many people love her and love her character, it's like, well, this person that I love and look up to, they have this thing, and so I guess it can't be that bad. And it really begins to diminish like that over time. And from all the brave people who stand up in the name of other people and stand up in the name of themselves, and then tolerance just, I think, is a thing that is born generation after generation. Every generation is a little more tolerant and accepting. And I wish there was a way to supercharge that. And obviously we have our theories about ways to break people out of ideas that don't serve them. I've never really thought of it specifically as tolerance or acceptance of mental illness or anything, but definitely think about ideas that either serve or don't, and spreading ideology, empowering ideology is why we exist as a company. So that is precisely what we're doing. That is precisely how Lisa and I have decided to spend the rest of our lives, is putting that at the center. And you get a community like this who reinforces that in each other, and I think the ideas can spread. And I think now in the hyper-connected world, things spread faster. And I do worry that you can get ideology spreading faster that I don't like and think is moving people backwards, but you can also get ideology that truly is empowering. And it's going to come from people talking about it. And you'll hear me talk about anxiety a lot because I've struggled with anxiety. So just you get more of that.
Yeah.
That's how it happens.
Great.
And to clarify, he actually meant phase 2 of impact theory.
Phase 2.
Got you. Phase 2. Okay, that's a lot easier to talk about than chapter 2 of the book. So to give everybody context, phase 1 is building the community. Phase 2 is what I'll call mining for astronauts, and then phase 3 is monetizing what those astronauts end up creating. Mining for astronauts is just another phrase that I really love, and I know nobody knows what that means, so let me break it down. I believe right now the next great mind is lost somewhere in Compton. And they don't believe in themselves. Nobody's ever given them any positive reinforcement whatsoever. But they're going to create the next great company, or they're going to create the next great movie, or start the next great social movement. Whatever the case. But right now, they don't believe in themselves, and because they don't believe in themselves, and they don't have a set of ideology that's going to allow them to pull themselves out of the matrix, they will be, if somebody doesn't intervene, lost forever. So in phase 2, we're going to be leveraging the community that we've built and a layer of technology, which we're exploring heavily. We may have to build ourselves, but I had a very encouraging meeting the other day here with the team and with a technologist who maybe has already developed something that would be just incredibly useful. And what we'll be looking for from you guys is the virality of an idea that you really believe in. So whether that's a company, and obviously our thing is it's got to be a mission-based company. It doesn't have to change the world, but it needs to make the world a better place. So, it doesn't have to end world hunger or end poverty, but it needs to contribute positively. So we're going to be looking only for companies that have that kind of mission, that are driven by that. But there's way too many ideas, even just the emails I ignore that are already coming in are too many to really dive into. But so what we're looking for is this community that we're putting together to tell us these are the companies and the types of content that we want to see. And then our role, once something has popped and gone viral, so that's phase 2 sort of A, if you will, and then phase 2B is to bring those people in and incubate that. And what I mean by that is teaching them how to execute. And execution is the only thing that matters. So knowing how to actually build a company is just insanely critical. And I don't think people are naturally good at that. I think most people are completely terrible at that. But I happen to believe that they can get good at that, which has certainly been true for myself. So creating an environment where people can do that, but only people that have already, passed hurdles. So if you think of it like Fight Club, I like to think of movies, you got to stand outside the door in the rain for 4 days, right? It just has to happen. We have to have some filter. Enduring is going to be a key part of that, a willingness to learn, showing a willingness to improve. Like, you have to do all that before you get to us. And unfortunately, as much as I wish, actually I don't wish it, fuck that. Here's the truth. I'm not going to spend my time on one-on-ones. It doesn't scale. So if you're going to get to me, you've got to have done other things that show that you're ready, that you'll actually make use of that time. That's the naked truth. So that's really what phase 2A is about. And then phase 2B, I'm going to help them get there. And then phase 3 is we're going to monetize that. I believe that commerce is the only way to make something self-sustaining. So we're going to turn those ideas and content into something that is, to put simple words around it, merchandisable. So your company needs to sell something, and then your content needs to be merchandised. I'm not just looking for things that are a great movie or a great TV series. It really has to be monetizable. So if you look at what Marvel Studios is doing, or you look at what Pixar is doing, Disney to me is on the acquisition end of what we're doing from a content perspective, where they just wait for something to be culturally relevant and then they buy it. What I'm saying is we want to make the things that are culturally relevant, and then monetize that largely through merchandising, which is why the obsession with I'm trying to change the way that people dress. You'll notice that I always wear a shirt that represents something that I believe. I want more people doing that, and I want to make those shirts, and I want that ideology to be born of what we do. I'm obsessed with shoes. Why? Because it's self-expression, and I want people to express themselves. So all of these things are going to be things that we really work with upcoming entrepreneurs to help bring more of that to the world. So yeah, that's really all 3 phases, but hopefully we'll make people fun too.
Nice. Yeah, let's do a couple more from the live audience.
Dave Prendergast. How do we
Dave
know?
Prendergast.
Yeah.
Who's that? Just kidding. What's up, Dave? So this, Dave, if you guys haven't, or guys, if you haven't seen Dave's video, he's the only person that's ever gotten me to mentor him one-on-one. He made a video. It was super impressive. And anybody, in fact, Dave, if you can put that link to your video, that would be amazing. I'm guessing by the camera you're looking at or the phone you're looking at that he might be on IG, and I don't know if they allow links. But it was pretty phenomenal and really goes into, or it shows exactly what you need to do to get somebody's attention. So he blew me away, researched the hell out of me, knew what would motivate me, knew what I was looking for, knew how to show me that working with him would actually be as good for me as it was for him. It was just very, very impressive. So for anybody that's trying to get somebody to be their mentor, Dave should be your mentor.
Oh, interesting. What's the question from Dave?
All right. So one, what metaphors do you find most useful for thinking about business? And then two, how do we know when to move to the inside or the outside of the penguin circle? And what metrics would you use to judge that?
Man, those are great questions. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've got penguins and we've got metaphors for business. I think that the two best metaphors are war and sports. The reason that I think that is war to me is about standing up for something that you believe in. I'm not the manifest destiny type, so when I think of war, I don't think of the aggressor. I think of somebody coming at you and you've got something that you believe in, you've got something that you're trying to do and accomplish, and you're just not going to back down, and you're prepared to go all the way, right? And war obviously is an absolute horrific human tragedy, but it is utterly fascinating to me that it is the one constant in all of like human evolution. And I mean, you can even go back and look at monkeys and how they have warring tribes. I mean, it's crazy town. So it is, to me, just a fundamental part of what it means to be human is not being willing to be bullied, and people that grow stronger and push back and are willing to fight and go all the way. And that's something that I really, really think about. When I was at Quest Day to Day, I should say, that was something that I thought a lot about is, look, I'm trying to save my mom and my sister, and it's something incredibly beautiful, and I want to be motivated by beauty and rage in equal measure. And at the same time, there's this entire industry of people that are doing things the wrong way, in my opinion, and they're taking this sort of easy, cheap way out. And I didn't think they were evil. I don't think anybody in the food industry is sinister. I just think that they've got perverse incentives, and easy and cheap is a great way to make money. And so that's what we were fighting against, was just the laziness of the industry. And so coming in and really thinking of it like, hey, this is like, the stakes are high. This is a fight. Like, we've got to be in here. We've got to know what we believe in, because man, let me tell you, if you're going to keep fighting and really pushing, and you don't have that thing that's driving you, that like, this is why I show up every day, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, this is what I would die for, then God, you're just gonna have a hard time fighting. And the decision to do impact theory was really me saying that concept taken to its extreme is impact theory. And that's why I wanted to spend my days on that. My dad gave me this sign that just really, really hit me, and it said, find something you would die for and live for it. And I think that's so, so important. And, I want people to understand that that's not something that you've had since birth or anything. It's just like a passion that's got to be cultivated, right? It starts with something like, hey, that seems like an injustice, or hey, I'm really passionate about wanting to see that, push forward. And then as you get more involved and you develop mastery and you gain a deeper understanding of what the problem really is and what the solution is like and whether you want to meaningfully contribute to that, then it grows and blossoms and becomes much bigger in your life. But that was... that's that thing for me. So that's super powerful. And then, thinking of it like sports, I think is also powerful to take some of the edge off. I like to think in the extremes, but there's so many amazing tales from sports, like the Jordan flu game, like all of those great sports stories, comebacks, the impossible wins, also just practice. The number of stories of people who just weren't physically talented, that people told them they would never play, and they go on to be in the Hall of Fame. Like, those stories feed my soul. And it's funny, the most controversial piece of content that we've put out is impact theory. Do you know what it is? So it is the keynote speech that I gave at Freedom Fastlane. Like, that shit is crazy controversial. And what did I say that was controversial? I said natural talent's bullshit, and that you can do anything you set your mind to. And people went crazy. And they're like, oh, that's BS. Like, natural talent's real thing. And can I just ask you a question? Don't you hope I'm right?
course.
Don't you hope you can become anything you want to be? So why would you waste even a second's worth of energy trying to convince me that it's not true? Like, that's so insane to me. You actually put effort into trying to tell me that there are things that I can't do. Why? To what end? Like, that is the total definition of madness. And trying to be more accepting of mental illness, like maybe I should be more open to that. But that is so insane to me that you would get angry, that you would take your time, and that you would try to attack a stranger for having a belief that, if it's true, empowers you, empowers him, empowers other people. Like, that's nuts. So, yeah, I just, sports is a great entry point for that, to really see just amazing tales of people overcoming a lack of natural talent, discipline, effort, all that stuff working. And then how do you know what metrics, I think, was in fact how to go from inside the penguin circle to outside? I don't have a metric. I'll try and make something up here on the spot, and we'll see if it resonates. But it really comes down to confidence and surety. And I'm a huge believer that confidence is just a brain chemistry state, that you can decide to be confident and cultivate that. But the best kind of confidence is always born of competence. So getting competent is just first and foremost. And so, being at the center of the penguin circle is going to be content specific, obviously. So there are some things in my life where I'm on the center of the penguin circle because I absolutely have no idea what I'm doing, and so I need to be nice and safe and warm. And there's other things where I've developed the strength and the competence, and so I can go stand on the outer edge. But yeah, it comes down to competence. Get good at things. Boom.
Shall we continue? How do you guys feel?
Yeah, we don't have a hard stop. So if if the community is holding steady or growing,
They are on Facebook. but
We
IG
lost
is
our IG
done.
feed.
IG's done. Oh,
An
hour.
don't you have to restart it?
So I want to jump in with a question here.
Can I just take a second? And first, I want to say I love this team more than you can imagine. Agent Smith, Cindy, you guys are both incredible human beings, and I hope that I make you feel that and believe it to the core of your fucking being. But I want everyone to think for a second that IG put a limit on us of an hour, and we accepted that. And that these two are going to beat themselves up for that later, because that is so crazy town. All you have to do is hit restart. So, and this is something that I find young entrepreneurs fall prey to a lot. Like, you need to push back, you need to question, you need to challenge everything. Because if you accept the rules, if you accept the limitations that other people, Instagram or anybody, try to place on you, I will not let Mark Zuckerberg determine for me how long my Instagram podcast is. So, yeah, push back.
Fair enough. All right, quick question for you. The Derek Sivers story in the episode is a really good one. So Tim says that, he was riding his bike, he was pushing for 43 minutes on this certain path, and he was not having any fun anymore. And so he decided that he was going to go out on a leisurely, I'm doing air quotes right now, leisurely bike ride. Right. And he only lost 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. So by huffing and puffing, by straining, he was getting 43 minutes. By enjoying the process, he was getting 45 minutes. So what do you think's behind this? Is that an effective strategy to just step back and say, I'm going to enjoy this instead of trying to push so hard?
Not always, but there's a great lesson in that. So I'm a huge believer that you have to push yourself, and you've got to be like, to me, I ask myself all the time, what's the thing that I'm willing to break myself in half for? What's that thing that I so believe in that I'm going to fight through when I'm sick, or that when it gets really hard or boring? Let's just talk about boring. Like, what's that thing that you believe in so much that you're going to keep going even when it's boring? Because that's normally what happens, right? Shit just gets boring. Yeah. Like, you don't want to do it anymore. And the example I always give when we're here, because I'm just looking at it, is the set, right? We had to hand paint the set, which never should have happened, but nonetheless, that was the situation that we were in. Strahan was coming in minutes, and the set just had to be painted. So we're in there, painting by hand. It was super fucking tedious, and we're doing it literally in the middle of the night. It was 3 a.m. And painting the set, and I just thought, this is that boring stuff that nobody really thinks about, but I really believe in what we're trying to accomplish, right? So am I willing to paint this set and be bored out of my mind and go without a night's sleep to end generational poverty? Yes, I am. Okay, well then you do that, right? So there are things that you just want badly enough that you really push, and I think that that's how you transcend your limitations, is by pushing, going super fucking hard. Now, having said that, in Derek's story, he said he was no longer enjoying the process and he was, thinking about giving up. I think at that point, yeah, you really do need to find the joy and you need to find the beauty. And even in things you're willing to break yourself in half for, like, can you find something that you love and that you're super stoked on? I think you can and should. And so that's an equally important question. So when I first started doing Inside Quest, I was super anxious. And I get really nervous before going on. And so I asked Lisa, like, before I go on, I don't want a big pep talk. I don't want you to tell me like how good I am at this. That's not what I'm looking for. What I want, just whisper in my ear, have fun. That's what I want to be reminded of.
Yeah.
I want to be reminded that this is supposed to be fun. I want to be reminded that this is a cool and exciting moment for me to learn, right? So if you put that notion in my head, the concept that this should be enjoyable, that it actually is something that I really enjoy, then my head will be in the right place. And so his story, the moral is not lost on me. I think it's incredibly powerful. That's one of those things that I don't want people to think that it's binary, because there are some things you just have to push, and you have to huff and puff, and you have to like really be prepared to kill yourself for.
Nice. All right, I just want to remind everyone, we are live. We're doing giveaways. You can still win this book by sending in your screen grab of a subscription and a review
On
of
iTunes.
the podcast, Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu on iTunes, please. Send it to connect@impacttheory.com, and we will tally those up, and we'll give a few books away today. Also, anyone who shares the Facebook live feed will also be included in that giveaway. So second giveaway. So we have 100 copies of this. We're giving them away all week long.
Yep.
We're going to be doing a lot of giveaways on Instagram as well, on Tom's IG. So turn on notifications if you want to be the first to hear about things.
In fact, this is the official announcement of the 5-Minute Club. The 5-Minute Club is going to be something that we go way harder on here in the future. Our goal is engagement, right? So we want to be engaging with you guys. And to do that, we want to reward the people that turn on notifications, that engage with the post within the first 5 minutes. So turn that on now. If you don't know how to do it, it's the 3 dots right across from my name. So if my name is in the upper left, then it would be over on the upper right. Press those 3 dots, turn on notifications. That way you'll be notified when I post something, and you can be eligible for giveaways. Not just this book. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with the 5-Minute Club. So get in it. Get in that 5-Minute Club.
Yes, please do. Cindy, any questions from the community?
Plenty.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So, this is from, where do I start? Gabriel. Tom, when Tim said that the secret to creativity was to establish low quotas, you really seemed surprised. I got surprised too. What he said about establishing goals to do small things that don't intimidate you may open many doors for me, since the toughest challenge I'm facing today is to stop what I'm doing and start working on my projects. Basically motivation. What do you think of this new perspective?
Yeah, so he's telling the story of IBM, and I thought of all people, IBM would just have crushing sales numbers. And as somebody that's had to work with the sales team to set quotas and stuff, the instinct really is you don't want it to be so high in the trees. In fact, the exact thing you're trying to do is find the balance between something that is aggressive enough that it will really get them to push, but not so high that they feel it's impossible and so they don't push.
Right.
And what he was saying that IBM, back in the day when they were just absolutely killing every company around them, their sales, were just demolishing everything, that they actually had the industry's lowest quotas. And I was very surprised by that. And still, as somebody, like if I were to set sales quotas today, I think I actually would test it. I was intrigued enough that I would give it a shot. But I have a huge, huge fear of incentivizing people to be lazy. So here's the reality. I know what it's like to keep your head down, do as little work as possible, and avoid punishment at all costs. And the fact is, like, that's where most people live. It's some shade of that. Like, most people aren't just crazy driven to do whatever the hell it takes because they feel like for them to be the person they want to be, that's what they have to do, right? It has nothing to do with anything extrinsic. It is all internal. When you find someone that's internally driven like that, it doesn't matter what sales quota you give them, because they're going to go after what they believe in.
Right.
And they're going to go, just guns a-blazing to become the person that they're trying to become. Everything comes back to identity for me. But it's rare. And most people, you know, they're gonna get distracted. They're gonna get caught up. And if they don't have some sort of stimulus, then, you know, I think that it would be tough. But it would be interesting to try. So one thing that we tried at Quest, and I actually don't think it worked, but we're doing here at Impact Theory, because I think that the concept is right. I just think you have to have it established from day one, is we have an unlimited vacation policy. So these guys can take off a day whenever the hell they want. They can take off as many as they want. So our only thing is you have to get your work done, right? So we've got a big goal. The reason that it works now is everybody's here for that goal, right? Everybody gets it. Like when you're on a small team, there's 7 of us. When you're on a small team, like you can be totally bought into that mission. You can be totally into what your role is in that. You know what it is. There's, you know, it isn't. If you think of it as the sun at the center, like everybody's warm around.
There's
them.
no hiding.
Yeah,
either.
There's no hiding either, for sure. It's like, Jesus, if you're not doing something, everyone's going to be like, hey, what the fuck? Like, we're over here killing ourselves. So I think that it really works, and I think that if you bake it into the culture early enough, then I think it's really, really successful. So that, to me, is one of those things that we're trying, and if it ends up being wrong, you know, then, of course, we can switch it away. But the truth is, like, I want people to feel like they control their own lives, and I know that autonomy is such a motivator for people, and then I just have no tolerance for people that aren't getting things done. So it's like, if you need a babysitter, this isn't the place for you, right? So yeah, to bring it all back around to the question, it's going to come down to low quotas like that. I think work when you have people that are driven internally, and they won't work if they're you know, doing the carrot and stick thing.
Interesting. More questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one comes from David on Facebook. I once heard Tom say that in order to get a mentor, we should try to convince the desired mentor that it's in their best interest to teach us. My question is, how can we possibly do that when we inherently don't have as much to offer?
Okay, so that is just a fundamental misunderstanding of what you're going to be offering them, because really time and energy is such a big thing, and if you happen to also be hardworking, like that goes a long way as well. So here's the pitch that I think anyone should give to somebody that they're trying to mentor, and this was obviously a variation of what Dave Pendergrast gave me, and it goes something like this: Dear sir or ma'am, I asked myself one simple question: who is living the life that I want to live? And you were the person that I identified. I really believe in what you're trying to accomplish. I'm totally blown away by it. What I'd like to do is trade you my time and energy for your knowledge, and that's it. You don't need to pay me anything, and I will work for free for 90 days. I'll be the hardest working and smartest working person that you've ever come across, and I'm going to completely pour myself into doing this. I will refuse no task. I will do whatever you ask me to do. The only thing I ask in exchange is knowledge. And at the end of the 90 days, I believe I will make myself so indispensable to you that you will want to put me on payroll just to not lose me. But if I don't, then, you know, no harm, no foul. I'm out time, and you've gotten somebody for free for 90 days. And as long as that really is the person that you actually want to work for, it's a total winning strategy. Now, the thing that people have to understand is, no, there's nothing to understand. That's like, that would still work on me.
That's it.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, yeah, like so many people, because we do get people that write in, but there's always some other complication that makes it troubling. But that is.
So the key takeaway is you're not trading expertise with this person. You're not saying, I'll give you my expertise for your expertise. You're just trading work, time and energy.
Yeah. So, because, you know, like when I think about what's stunting the growth of impact theory, it is purely, we know what to do, right? We just don't have enough people to do everything.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking, I mean, hey, if you're also an expert in something, that'd be amazing. But I think that when people come with no expectation other than knowledge, it could actually be a good trade. If people are coming because they think they're an expert in this and they really want to get paid for it in 90 days, chances are you're going to be disappointed, because if we had budget for that thing, then we would have already been paying for it. So it really comes down to, If at the end of the 90 days you're completely satisfied with the knowledge that you gained in that 90 days, and we really can shake hands and walk away, and I just have a stream of people coming in for 90 days and they're all killing themselves, great. And then every now and then you find a gem that you're like, wow, what you're showing a propensity for and your energy and everything fits so well that we actually do want to put you on payroll because we're afraid to lose you. But that you didn't do it for that reason, that it wasn't, you weren't going to consider it a bust if you made it to the 90 days and then didn't get anything for that. So it does really come down to your willingness to truly make good on that, you know, at the end of the 90 days we shake hands and part ways and there's no hard feelings.
So another one from Ben. Why do you think monetization is so important in getting people to learn or accept new concepts? Can you please explain a little bit more about this concept?
I don't think monetization has anything to do with people learning or accepting new concepts. I think monetization, you know, money, profitability is the blood of a business. And just like none of us live for our blood, but without our blood we can't live, it's the same thing for business. If you don't have profit coming in, you can't stay in business. Every company, like you are asking people to, even if you're a nonprofit, you're asking people to give you money. So like money is at the center of all of this. It is the system that we have agreed we're going to use, right? So until the world moves away from that to a different system, it's the system. So that to me is the only way to make it self-sustaining. Commerce right now is the only way to make something self-sustaining. And certainly scale. I mean, Jesus. You know, you look at the big companies, look at what Google's able to do. Built self-driving cars, like had nothing to do with their business. Nothing! Right. But they could build self-driving cars because, fuck it, they make like $50 billion a day. It's retarded. So obviously that's an exaggeration, but they make a lot of money.
Right.
Just to remind everyone, we are on Facebook and IG Live. You can catch us here every Tuesday after the podcast and YouTube episode launch. This is where we discuss, it's called After Impact. We dive in and we really discuss the episode. We're also giving away Tools of Titans, so go and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, rate and review, send us a screen grab at connect@impacttheory.com, and you will be eligible to win this book. We're going to give a few of them away, and we're going to keep giving this book away because we have 100 copies, so we got a lot to get through.
Nice. And if you guys remember, my promise to the community is I will keep answering questions during these as long as the numbers are holding steady or increasing. And then we wrap it up if they're going down. So Cindy's going to tell us how we're doing on the numbers.
They're on the steady decline.
All right, so we're declining, so we're going to take one more question.
All right, so this one's from Trevor related to the episode. So Tom, what's the most surprising thing that Tim had to say during your time with him? Doesn't necessarily have to be from the interview.
So the question is, for Tom, what is the most surprising thing that surprised you from your time with Tim? Doesn't have to be from the interview. It could be outside of that.
Well, the bad news is the most surprising thing he said we've already talked about, which is lower your standards, which I love. God, what are some other, like, Tim is, the thing that surprised me most, really, this was long before I met him, but when I was reading the 4-Hour Work Week, you know, everything about his approach was counterintuitive, you know, about just deadly efficiency. And once you reframe it in your mind as being about deadly efficiency and not just working 4 hours a week, which he's obviously now struggled his entire career to get people to understand, that he's still, you know, a workaholic and he still works a lot. It's just that he's really looking for deadly efficiency. But also one concept that he has is to do the opposite. And I think that's a really, really useful tool to, you know, say, I've been doing it this way for a long time, but what if I flip the script? You know, so my 9-hour Instagram post, what if I force myself to do it, you know, really short? So forcing yourself to challenge all of your assumptions, I think, is just really, really critical. Not answering email, you know. I was somebody that I would make sure I answered every email I had every day. Like, that was like a whole thing for me. And reading his book and realizing, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore, and that reading emails, letting other people dictate my schedule, and I'm not going to do that. And so literally now, and I'm sure it drives you guys all nuts, but I tell people that email is a 72-hour turnaround, but the truth is it's more like 3 weeks, and that really, if something's important, you should probably just ask me, because the chances that I miss your email because I don't check it is very, very high. All things like that where people just feel all this social convention tied up in it. You know, Tim really bucks social convention. If you guys have ever seen the movie Funny Games watch that movie. It's amazing. It's a horror film, so full disclosure, but it's about how this family gets trapped because it would be every little thing that the killers ask for is so small that they don't feel that they can say no. And trust me, in the movie, it does not come off cheesy. Like, you really are like, oh God, yeah, I probably would say yes to that. And then all of a sudden they're like fucking trapped, and it's crazy. Tim, that would never happen, right? So in Tim's world, it would just end right away because Tim is not afraid to buck social convention, and I absolutely love that about him.
Yeah, the question about what can I do that's the opposite, I think is really, really important, because I think a lot of people get trapped when something's not working. They don't know what to do differently. They don't know what to try that's different. So this is an easy way to, do the opposite. It gives you a direction, right? And then you are probably going to have some insights based off of what you've done that's opposite to figure out where you need to go next, what you need to try next.
Love that. Love that. It's a great insight. Thank you. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it. We so appreciate you guys joining, and if I could just give a shout out to this team. I love this team. And Agent Smith, by the way, does a lot of prep for these things, so mad love to you. Don't think that is lost on me. It's fantastic, and Cindy, as always, is the life of this community. So thank you guys so much. And then to the people that don't make it onto camera or voice, the rest of this team, they are just inhumanly amazing people, and I'm so grateful for all their contributions. So much love to them. All right, guys, this is a weekly show, so make sure that you subscribe. And our last time we'll repeat this, go right now to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast. That's how we're going to get on New and Noteworthy and blow this thing up. And don't forget, all week, giving away 100 copies of Tools of Titans. All right, thanks to Tim Ferriss for coming on the show. And until next time, be legendary, my friends. Take care. Peace out.
Bye, everyone.